It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Now, what you see here is the board of the game. It's quite a large board. And what you'll be doing during the game is settling different locations in space. To do so, you will need to acquire the required technologies. Those requirements change with the different locations depicted. Some will need some technologies, some others will need others. And you will be also participating in some joint efforts, providing them with the required technologies or with things that need to be moved there. This is the terraforming of Mars, but there are some outer space probe, some like the von Neumann exploration probe or the Bracewell contact probe, and there's another one here. It's a probe to the volcanoid belt, that is an asteroid belt very near the Sun. And all of these actions will yield you points at the end of the game. Whoever has more points or influence in the upcoming Solar Federation will be the winner of the game. Now let's see the details. Now what you see here is the turn order track or the turn priority track. Each player will have a pawn of the color, and the player in the frontmost position will be on turn. When the player takes an action, it will pay its cost by moving backwards in the turn order. For example, if he performs an action with a cost of 5, it will step back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces in the turn order track. Now will be the turn of the yellow player. He will do the same, stepping back, and now will be the turn of the green player. Now, if the green player, for example, performs an action with a cost of 3, he will have to keep going to the next vacant spot because the sixth space was occupied by the red. Now blue has some space here, so he may want to perform a cheap action, an action of a cost of 1, so he would be able to play again. And then, so it's important when you choose to perform expensive actions, because they will move you backwards a lot, and there are times you may end up with some space and maybe you want to perform some little actions, making differences, small difference here and there, taking the advantage that you will get to play again before your turn comes back to you. Now, this is the main core economic engine of the actions that we'll see now. Over here is the technology tree. Let me say these are basic technologies, these are advanced technologies that you will acquire during the game by settling colonies in planets and moons. But at the beginning of the game, each player starts with one technology. These technologies relate to gravity. This is microgravity, this is zero gravity technology. These ones related to pressure, zero pressure or very high pressure, radiation, and temperature, cold and cryogenic cold. One action you can perform during the game is to research a new technology you don't own, you do so by paying the cost to research basic technology, which is 3 steps in the priority turn order, or 5, like depicted in here, for the advanced technologies. When you acquire a new technology, you place a chip of your color there, and the owner of the technology, the one that lent you the technology, receives a benefit. Thus, he advances 1 position in the turn order track. During the game, you will be moving things around space. You will start at Earth, and you will be moving, for example, to Venus. One of the actions you may perform is to set up a satellite network around Venus. And when you move things around, you need to take into account the gravity of the place you are lifting the thing from, and the distance between the point of origin and destination. In this case, Earth has a very strong gravity, it's a gravity 2, and the distance within Earth, that is the distance from the Sun, is 3, and Venus is 2, so the distance between them is 1. If you add the gravity, that is 2 to launch, plus 1, the distance to destination, taking something from Earth to Venus will cost you 3 action points. That's very simple. So you want to take satellites from Earth to Venus, you pay 3 spaces in the turn order track, you place a chip of your color there, and that is it. Another thing you may do is to settle, establish a colony in a planet. To do so, you first need to have a project that meets the technological requirements of the place you want to settle. Different types of colonies have different technological requirements. There are, for example, low orbital colonies, or colonies in craters, or colonies in the surface of the planet. And so if you do have these technologies, or some player have them, you pay the cost to make a project. You put a chip of your color there to reserve it for you, so no other player can project a colony there. You pay the cost, and if you used technology from other player, that player gets a benefit. For example, if I don't have radiation 1 technology, the player who has it and lent it to me, advances in the turn order track 1 space. Once you have a project, you're back on your turn, it's time to settle it. To do so, you will need to ship colonists from Earth or from another colony of yours to the location you want to settle. For example, if I have this colony here, I could bring settlers from here, else I would have to bring it from Earth. And there are another things a colony needs that are depicted here. Black things are usually required by this type of colonies, but they are not depicted, and they are not required in this case, in this particular case. For example, this colony will normally need satellites, but because the moon is so close to the Earth and we are so up in the future, satellites wouldn't be needed. But it does need require water, which is one of the resources in the game, water, energy, and materials. And you can bring water from Earth, paying the cost, just like when we explained the satellites, adding up the gravity from the place you are taking it from and the distance. In case of Earth and the Moon, Earth has a gravity of 2 and is it's at the same distance of the moon, so taking something from Earth to the moon will cost 2 points. 2 points for the settlers, people, 2 points for the water, for 4 spaces in the priority order track. You would be able to settle this location and space. Now, this location will now provide you with resources that will facilitate the foundation of new colonies. So, this particular location produces energy and produces materials. Materials that would be needed, for example, in this colony. This colony requires materials. If the blue player wants to settle this location, he will have to pay for a project that meets the technological requirements for spaces, and then when his turns come back again, he will be able to ship colonies from here to here at a much cheaper price than bringing them to Earth. But not much, but because gravity here is 1, so 1 from launch to launch the colonists, and 0 for the distance. For a price of 1, he could have colonies traveling from here to here, and materials also traveling from here to here for a price of 2 total. He would be able to place a second colony there. So, as you can see, each colony you settle in space allows you to go further, and possibly allows other players to go further. If the red player would like to project a colony here, or settle a colony there, he will have to pay the same cost for the project, and the technological requirements have to be met, and he would fly colonies from his colonies in space or from Earth. You cannot get colonies on colonies of other players, but you can get materials from other players. So he would bring colonies from Earth, for example, paying 2 to lift them up and get them here, and he will bring materials from here, paying 1 to lift them up and 0 for the distance. For a cost of 3, the red player could get materials and colonies and settle that location. But since the blue player provided the materials, he will advance 1 space in the priority turn order track. Now, the last thing you can do is to participate in these joint projects, such as the terraforming of Mars. You can, during your turn, you can help out with technologies. For example, if you have the Gravity 1 technology, you can spend 2 spaces in the turn order track to put 2 chips of your color in there. And how this works is counting majorities. If the green player, for example, gives these 3 technologies for the project, he will have the majority at the end of the game, and he will score 4 points as indicated here, and the second player that provides most to the effort, to the joint effort, will score 2 points, and the third will score 1 point. In case of a tie, for example, if red and blue had the same amount of participation, they'll both score one level less than it would correspond, so both would score 1 instead of 2. Now, these are also part of the the project, and these are the technologies, but these are things you must lift from other places and get to Mars. For example, these are things brought from Earth, these two, and these are asteroids from Ceres. I don't know how you say that. Now, if you pay this cost, the cost associated with bringing this, you would place 3 chips of your color there, and of course you have to have, or someone has to have, a colony in Ceres. You will place the initial gravity, or the gravity of the place you're bringing things from, and the distance. In this case, the distance between Ceres and Mars is 1. And in Ceres, for example, you could bring things from a place where gravity is 0, or a place where gravity is higher. If you bring things from a colony in high orbit, you'll have to pay 2 to lift off and 1 to get to Mars. If you lift things from here, you will get 0 to lift off and 1 to get to Mars. So it depends where you bring assets from. The cost may vary. Of course, if you're lifting things from a colony that doesn't belong to you, you will have to pay its owner, or the owner will get its benefits, effectively advancing 1 step in the turn order track or more. And at the end of the game, whoever has the majority wins most points, and the others get the rest. Now, most colonies provide you with resources, materials, water, and energy. But orbital colonies, that could be high orbital colonies or low orbital colonies, have different outputs. They both provide energy, usually, but low orbital colonies allow you to lift off assets from one place to another with a gravity 0. That's what this icon means. You can lift off settlers or energy. You can export energy from here with gravity 0. And the high orbital colony allows you to ignore the distance to travel through Jupiter. For example, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus have orbital colonies. If I have a colony here, I would normally only be able to travel to a distance of 1, effectively reaching Saturn or Titan, but I couldn't reach Uranus. Now, if there is a colony here, a high orbital colony here, I can ignore this distance and carry something from Jupiter directly to Uranus by paying a benefit to the owner of this colony. By the way, this is the golden colony. That's the last colony you place. Every player has a golden colony, because when the 10th colony is placed, the game is over and points are added up. Now, at the end of the game, you score points. Now, every colony yields 3 points. High orbital colony yield an extra point, so they yield 4. And joint projects yield 4, 2, or 1 point, depending on majorities. Basic technologies yield a point, and advanced technologies yield 2 points. And satellite networks like this yield an extra point. So whoever has the most point of influence in the new Solar Federation is the winner. Now just a quick note about all the inscriptions and data you see there in the board. They may look daunting, but they are like flavor text. I mean, you may find this interesting or not, but there is actually a Jiangmenfu crater in Mercury. So these things are not made up. I mean, this is a product of research about different locations in space, what type of colonies could be established in each place, and it serves as an educational purpose. So don't be frightened by the amount of data in the board, and I hope you may find it interesting.